What the hell just happened? All right, let's talk about U.S.-Canada now.
Neighbors are at a new modern high as President Trump imposes 50% tariffs on a variety of Canadian imports. The talks collapsing late Friday, the Canadians walking out of negotiations with the U.S.
We cannot accept what they've offered, and we will not give what they've asked.
The Trump administration pointing to bans on the sale of U.S. alcohol in Canada, along with protections for Canadian dairy farmers.
We're moving forward with measures that respond to Canadian retaliation.
North of the border, leaders are rallying around the Maple Leaf and blasting President Trump.
He can't be trusted. Simple as that. He changes the deal. He keeps moving the goalpost.
The new U.S. tariffs will touch on just 5% of the Canadian goods that come south, but the list of affected products ranges from Canadian beer and whiskey to hockey sticks, furniture, textiles, and building supplies like cement. American importers will now have to pay a 50% levy to bring those items across the border, and their added costs are likely to be passed on to consumers. President Trump has said tariff is one of his favorite words, and earlier this month he said this about America's northern neighbors.
Canada's nasty. They are. They're nasty. People think Canada, they're nasty. I love the people, but they're nasty. Nasty leadership.
Canada's Prime Minister now vowing to fight back.
Canada will match Washington's new tariffs dollar for dollar in order to protect Canadian workers, farmers, families, and businesses.
Section 338 of the Smoot-Hawley Act, passed at the height of the Great Depression, allows the president to impose tariffs on imports from any country that he finds has discriminated against American commerce. Now, that authority's been on the books since 1930, but it's never been used before like this. Gio?
All right, Stephen Portnoy, thank you so much.
Donald Trump in the last half hour at the Freedom 250 Grand Prix in D.C. He then went on to do a lap in the Beast while the world deals with petrol prices up because of his war with Iran. The rest of America, meanwhile, has been digesting a crisis closer to home.
Trade talks between the U.S. and Canada collapsing overnight.
Canada has declined to finalize a trade deal with the United States.
The US and Canada once had one of the most durable trade alliances in the world. Now negotiations have reached an impasse.
They asked too much, and they offered too little.
The United States has now imposed 50% tariffs on billions of dollars worth of Canadian goods. Canada says it will do the exact same in little over a fortnight. Both countries now facing the risk of a full-scale trade war.
You're at war when you get attacked. We got attacked. U.S. put 50%. We waited until the United States decided to actually implement these so-called 338 tariffs. That's fine. We've got the reserves. We've got the resilience. We've got the plan. We've got the focus. We will respond. Canada will match Washington's new tariffs dollar for dollar in order to protect Canadian workers.
As well as the big, like steel and electronics, it also impacts the small, right down to hockey sticks and, bizarrely, false beards. Both countries blame each other, citing last-minute changes and rowing back on promises. Yet it seemed before the talks broke down on Friday that the US president was confident of getting something over the line.
Have you come to a deal there?
Pretty much, I think so. We'll see. I've dealt with the Prime Minister, have a good relationship.
But there has been a pattern of Trump goading the Prime Minister of Canada with public taunts about its sovereignty. When they met at the White House in May last year, Carney was all about the boundaries.
As you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
It seems this weekend Trump has returned to form. This was posted to his Truth Social channel. Canada wants the benefits of being a state without being one. They've also charged our great farmers for many years massive amounts of tariffs. No more. Canada's politicians are insisting that the country has lots of other dance partners out there, responding with a unified front even across party divides and in areas where much of its manufacturing is based.
We're going to be a united team Canada as Donald Trump is trying to inflict pain on every Canadian, that we inflict pain right back until he realizes that we're his #1 customer in the world.
In April last year, Trump called it
Liberation Day,
slapping tariffs on much of the world. Billions of dollars were later refunded after the Supreme Court ruled it was all unlawful. Canada insists this latest breakdown liberates no one, that a trade deal was possible, but this wasn't it. The distance between the two countries may be small, but the gulf has rarely been wider.
Hello, Prime Minister. Mackenzie Gray with Global News. I'm hoping you can tell us what the specific last-minute changes that the Americans proposed that made a deal untenable.
Thank you for the question. Look, I would say two things. One is there are some specifics, and I'll give you some examples, but it was also a cumulative aspect, as I mentioned in my remarks, about the willingness dans l'ensemble in total to enter into a true economic partnership. But in terms of specifics, I'll give you three, and I know there's other questions. First, with respect to the auto industry, both in terms of the level of the tariffs, the treatment of Canadian content, so Canadian parts, Canadian steel, Canadian content in vehicles, the scope of the tariffs. The Americans wanted to limit it to autos only, not include medium and heavy autos and light trucks, to be more specific, not include medium and heavy duty trucks, which is a big change, obviously. And with respect to Ford's new plant, for example, in Oakville, which is F-350s, 450s, 550s, they would have been excluded. GM Silverado, same thing, would have been excluded from that. No rationale, just for exclusion. So effectively moving into a series of terms that would made the production more uneconomic over time. Okay, so that's a change. That restriction, that clarification, that precision was a change. The U.S. introduced in the last hours, efforts to restrict our ability to have other trade deals. You heard me say a moment ago what we've accomplished in the last year, 20 new deals, economic and security partnerships. The prospect of doubling our market access because we believe in free trade. We're the partner of choice in many respects for countries around the world, and the Americans wanted to restrict that. They had language that they wanted to restrict that. Unacceptable. And I'll give you a third, et peut-être on peut discuter plus en français. Continual efforts, always resisted, as I said in my remarks, and always will be resisted, efforts to restrict our protections of our language, our culture, and in effect, our sovereignty. So elements coming in, ramping up, any of them individually, but collectively put us in a position where what had been on a trajectory, absent those elements, for a fair deal, a good deal for Canadians, not perfect, but a good deal, a deal we would not accept.
Follow-up, question suivie.
Was Howard Lutnick's involvement in the last days an impediment to getting a deal?
It's a question.
This was at a private Republican donors event, not just J.D. Vance, but lots of senior Republicans were there. Now, it must be said, J.D. Vance said that Mark Carney was a very sweet guy before he frankly went on to ridicule the Prime Minister and certainly these talks. Let's have a look at some of the quotes from this private function. Mr. Vance said that Carney comes in and puffs his chest out and says, I'm going to out-tough Donald Trump. It's hilarious because Carney presents this as some victory for Canada when fundamentally, they climbed down on a lot of issues. And then he goes on to say, interestingly, but the quiet sort of behind-the-scenes stories is that this, random MP who's had a good relationship with us has been a pretty effective advocate. Now, that MP is Jamil Juvani, of course, the Conservative MP. We know he's a very good friend of J.D. Vance. We're told by Mr. Vance himself that he has inserted himself into these negotiations. Now, we heard from Mr. Trump on Wednesday. He suggested, of course, that he had a good relationship, a very nice relationship with the leadership right now, and also said that this was a good deal for everyone. But then Mr. Vance also kind of doubled down on that, if you like, in this speech. He said that Trump is not trying to bend over to make Canada happy, but saw that there was an opportunity here to get some wins for the country. And the whole point of this is to change Canada's behaviour, which they, not entirely, but they've shifted in a Trumpian direction, according to Mr. Vance. Now, I think there's two things at play here. One of them is, obviously, this is JD.
Dude, this Canada shit is so funny. I mean, it's already locked in. I think Mark Carney will never lose another election for the rest of his life. As long as he lives, as long as he continues to survive, he probably will be he probably will be, unfortunately, Canada's greatest leader in the eyes of Canadians. He's going to have like 70% support no matter what, because Donald Trump fucked it. Donald Trump fucked it in ways that, look, Avi is my guy. I love Avi Lewis. It just sucks. Because what Donald Trump did in terms of demanding that Canada change its French language, Quebec culture, and Canadian identity as a condition for reversing tariffs. You literally could not have designed a better position for the Liberals. Okay? You could not have designed a better position for the Liberals. The power center for the Liberals comes from the Quebecois. The Quebecois that vote for him, that vote for the Liberal Party because they see the Liberals as being like defensive to Francophone, like the preservation of French culture and the language and things like that. %30 of the seats in Parliament are GC. Don't you think this was also bolster Bloc Québécois? I don't think so. The only reason why I say that is because, I mean, look, every time, for the record, anytime Trump attacks Canada, Mark Carney wins. Okay? Anytime Trump attacks Canada, Mark Carney wins. That's literally why he won. And anytime Donald Trump comes out and says, like, fuck Canada, and Mark Carney comes out and says, well, fuck you back, you know, Canada is no longer just America's hat or whatever, its popularity gets a boost. Portland Chud agitators trying to harass you tonight, maybe streaming from crowd. Good to know. Thank you. I forgot that there's a lot of Chuds in Portland. I mean, they'll just get kicked out if they try to do some shit. It's not all bad. At current polling, the NDP's posed to overtake the Conservative Party as the opposition party in the House so they can actually push for better left legislation, with the Libs hoping. I'm not sure if Carney will go with it, but still. Anyway, Donald Trump coming out and talking about like eradicating the extraordinary demands that they made. Summary of the key demands in the 2026 Canada-U.S. trade negotiations. Were totally ridiculous. Veto over strategic infrastructure partnerships, preemptive trade restrictions on non-U.S. nations, mandates forcing Canada to match U.S. sanctions, export controls. It just entirely removes Canadian sovereignty from the process. And by way of tariffs, Donald Trump thought he could do a de facto annexation of Canada, I guess. And yeah, obviously Canada's going to say no to that. It's ridiculous. Why would anybody say yes to that? So now it's not happening.
Evans talking to a private Republican event, so he is essentially boasting about this deal in a political way. I mean, at the end of the day, the Americans are trying to convince the other Americans that this is a good deal. So it's quite difficult to work out how much this is domestic posturing versus what the reality might actually be.
I'm going to go through why we're walking away from a bad deal and what comes next. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. You're at war when you get attacked. We got attacked. we've been under no illusions. We recognized from...
Yeah, it's not just French dictating Canadian trade policies, priority access to minerals, the ability to snap back tariffs at any time. It was a, I guess it was like a soft vassalization without military annexation, right? Without like a military occupation. It was by way of Donald Trump coming in and saying, we're going to tariff the fuck out of you. And then at the last minute, turning it into a vassalization agreement. Like you give us your minerals, you have no say in the matter, you have no say in your own personal you have no economic freedom, you have no economic sovereignty. We control every aspect of Canadian governance, and there's not really anything you can do.
From the start that America has changed.
Like turning Canada into, I guess, America's Belarus.
Recognize that sometimes its signature was written in pencil. The gap between partnership and competitor, unfortunately, has remained too wide in recent days.
The U.S. will now impose a 50% tariff on many Canadian goods, and Canada will impose retaliatory tariffs.
Let me be clear. We take this step reluctantly. Reluctantly because we recognize that some of these measures will raise costs.
And then classic, just like with Iran, just like with everything else, a U.S. trade official claimed Canada made new demands late in the process before declining to agree to the deal. And it's ironic because, of course, the truth is the exact opposite. Would you be shocked to find out that this is projection? It was actually us. We were the ones who added ridiculous conditions in the last hour.
Last spring.
Also, I'm going to talk about Sean Duffy in a second. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy also said something fucking insane about Canada.
I warned that America is trying to break us so they can own us. And I promise that that will never, ever happen. We are keeping that promise.
Yeah, Transport Secretary Sean Duffy on Fox News on Canada Trade Talk said, it's a country that doesn't have a military. I think you're going to see Mark Carney come to the table very, very quickly.
Well, listen, they were just in Canada, and there's news this weekend of the trade issue that we have going on. Trade talks falling apart. Obviously, they're a major partner for us, back and forth across the borders, planes, trains, and automobiles. DOT has a lot to do with that. Is there anything in your position as Secretary of Transportation that you're thinking about with respect to a tool in this sort of trade war back and forth?
We're great trading partners, right? But Canada gets the benefit of trading with the U.S. way more than the U.S. gets the benefit of trading with Canada. It's a country that doesn't have a military. It has a country that has a single...
That's insane. It's one of those things where, like, is he threatening Canada or is he stupid and he legitimately doesn't know that Canada does have a military? Like, is he saying they're pussies and he's like threatening Canada? Or is he actually just dumb as fuck and he legitimately doesn't know that Canada does have a military? Could be both. Could be both. Very funny situation that we found ourselves in. I mean, it's a horrible situation overall. Oh my God. I don't know. I mean, this calcifies liberal rule forever, I think. Anytime Mark Carney's popularity is going down, Trump offers him a layup like this.
Healthcare system that's failing. They have record high euthanasia rates. And so to think that they're going to go to war with Donald Trump.
Does he mean like they're doing euthanasia, or does he mean there's a lot of Asians in Canada? Again, many questions for Sean Duffy. Because he put a pause between youth in Asia. You never know.
Trump and actually win that war with the U.S., I think it's foolish on their part. In Washington.
Well, listen, they were just in Canada, and there's.
It's called Vancouver. Yeah, I mean, Sean Duffy is an MTV Real World guy. So Alex Kosh, news editor Read the Maple, says, despite this, Canada is increasing its military exports to the USA is continuing to buy weapons from American arms companies. I meant Duffy had to say Canada has no military. Yeah.